What's up, Dr. Duo? Welcome back to the presentation. Now we're going to look at the notch filter. So to begin, our, our sampling frequency is going to be 48 kilohertz, and this time I have double checked that that is the same sampling frequency on the DSP board that we're programming. So we should get some good results here. To generate the notch filter, I'm generating a bandpass filter down here using a Gaussian distribution, or like a normal distribution, where the scale, instead of scaling it so that the area under the curve is 1 like a normal distribution would be, I took off that scaling factor so the graph actually looks like it goes from 0 to 1, which is what we want. Then I just take that distribution and subtract it from 1 to generate the notch. Then I lob off that negative frequency because that is not good for some reason. I talked with Justin a lot about that, and we found out that lobbing off the negative frequency makes the filter work. There's a reason in there that I can't remember right now. It was a while ago that we talked about that. But anyway, let's go ahead and look at what we're going to generate here. So we're going to generate a notch filter that has a cutoff frequency or center frequency of 4,000 hertz, and then a quality factor or Q factor of 0.7. And a little bit on this Q adjust here. Since I'm using a Gaussian distribution, the only way to adjust that width of the distribution is by adjusting that sigma value that's typically in a normal distribution, which would go right here. But since we're at values that aren't centered around 0 and don't span like 1, 2, 3, or 4 like you'd see for a regular value of sigma, which would be the standard deviation, since we're at values of like 1,000 and we're jumping to values like 2,000 and 500, and the numbers are a lot bigger, I have to adjust that value here so that it's like our sigma is also really big. But I've done it in such a way that this Q behaves like it does in WinDisk. So I'm not sure if there was a way that we were supposed to find an equation for a notch filter. When I did research on this for notch filters, I found everything for pretty much IIR filters, and since this is FIR, those wouldn't really help me out necessarily. I suppose there might be a way to convert that FIR down to IIR. But this just felt like a much simpler approach. So, and it works, which you will see. So let's go ahead, and I believe it's currently running. Let me go ahead and make sure that it's not, so I can prove to you that it will work. So this is currently what we're working with. I've got my laptop over here generating the noise just like before. We can show you what that looks like before we throw it through the DSP board. So, and I gotta come over here and make sure that the inputs are what we want. There. There is our noise coming in, and if I go ahead and swap this back out and then run it through the filter, it should attenuate all the frequencies around 4,000 hertz. Let's go ahead and switch this back. Nothing's going on. Let's go ahead and make sure it's generating the notch here. And then we'll throw it at it. There we go. So this is the resulting Fourier transform of our filter taps. So it looks good here, so it should look good over in our thingamabob. We can go ahead and grab this like that, and we can see if we can try and match up these spectrums essentially. Let's go ahead and flash the board. The audio is already playing, so as soon as the board is flashed, it should go ahead and just show up. Wait for it. There it is. Okay. So you can see we have some attenuation right there, and that's about 4,000. Ta-da! Awesome sauce. So, what can we do? How can we change this? So we can change the Q factor, we can change the cutoff frequency, we can change the sampling frequency and the number of taps. I guess we'll just do all of that. Why not? Let's bring our sampling frequency down to 24. That way we get twice as many taps. Not sure how big of an effect that's going to have for us, but we'll just pretend that it's going to. So, and then since we have more taps, we might be able to get away with a higher Q factor and still have good quality. So let's go ahead and run that. There we go. Much narrower bandwidth there, and the spectral leakage looks a lot more fine thanks to our higher number of taps. If you want to take a look real quick at the original spectrums, those will look the same, except for when we change the cutoff frequency, of course. The sampling frequency and filter taps really only affect this further processing that we do, essentially that window. And of course the sampling frequency does adjust the width of this spectrum, more or less. The cutoff frequency will always be the same so long as we don't change it here. So anyway, we'll bring this back up. There's our old one. I'll have to flash the board again in order to bring up this new one, which should be at 2000. So I have to change the sampling frequency on the DSP board real quick. If I don't do that, it won't look great. Okay, and I want to make sure that the coefficients are the right ones, which they were not. I'm syncing this coefficient file across OneDrive so that I can present everything on here with my Fruity Loops Studio workstation, and then program the board with my laptop. I suppose I could program it with my desktop, but I'd have to install that software and everything again. I don't want to do that because I'm lazy. Okay, looks like they switched over, so we'll just bring this up again. I'll put it right there so you can still see the scope. Then it's time to flash the board. See if we get something good. Fingers crossed. Oof. Hard to tell. Kind of right there, yeah? Yep, that's around 2000. That's kind of where I'm seeing the line at. But again, it's not that great. And if you actually pull up the WinDisk version and throw it on the spectrum here, actually I can do that. I'll show you. It's still not that great. You can see this looks a bit different, and that's probably mostly because we changed the sampling frequency. We don't have any frequencies above 12 kilohertz because that's our FS/2 value, and you can see the spectrum is zero, mostly zero up there. And that's why this looks different from before. That different look here is probably not from our notch filter, since we can see the notch filter isn't doing that much. If we were to, however, increase the bandwidth of the notch filter, we might see that increase a bit more. So before I dive into WinDisk real quick, let's just change that. So we'll bring it back down to 2.6. Run this again. So let's see, nice and wide. Luckily, we're not notching out all the frequency values that are low here. We still have it only attenuates around this region. If we made this any wider, it would start to attenuate almost everything, and that's exactly what it does in WinDisk too. Okay, so there's our numbers there. They are matching up on my laptop. So let's go ahead. Let's check to make sure this is the correct frequency. Yep, 2000. Goody goody. It is flashing currently, so we should see some change here. There we go. That's a lot more visible since we widened it out a bit. You can see that notch a bit better. Of course, this means we're sacrificing the neighboring frequencies by doing this, but you give and you take, I guess. All right, let me pull up WinDisk real quick and show you what that looks like on our spectrum analyzers here. Close out a code composer and get my WinDisk going. Input source is going to be mic in from now on. bring up the notch filter. Oh no, why didn't you? Oh, it's because I don't have it plugged in. Psh. We didn't hear that. Oh, come on. Do your job. Use them. Should become 5, right? There we go. Okay, that's a bandpass filter. We want the notch filter. It's currently at 2K, with a sampling frequency of 48. Let's bring it down to 24 so we can keep a very nice comparison of the notch filters. We'll say done here. That's a 2K. So it looks kind of like what we had. We had a Q value of 0.6. Let me bring this Q value to 0.6 here as well. And if you want, since you have the ability, wind back to when I was showing you that and compare these two. You can see how well mine did. If we bring it up to around 9, which I think is where we were at earlier, so there's 0.9 Q factor. This actually does a pretty nice job of cutting that out right there. I'm not sure what kind of filter WinDisk is using, but it is a little better than mine. Probably using a more aggressive filter than a Gaussian distribution. Perhaps. I don't know. But anyway, I am going to say that that is good. If you want to hear that, it just kind of sounds like noise. Because I could try and throw in a 2 kilohertz sine wave. I think I've done that before. Let's see how that was. Recent files. That's 200. There's 2000. So I'll just. Oh, it won't let me do it. Control C. I hope this isn't too loud. Okay. Wow. So we're heavily clipping here. Yo, why you gotta be so insane? I'm just gonna lower these down so that they're not. There we go, that's a bit better. Okay. Yeah, you can really hear it now. And so let's bring WinDisk's images. Why is their notch? Their notch is not at the correct sampling frequency. Oh, look at that. There we go. There's their notch filter, really notching that out of there. That's really good on them. Let's see if I can achieve the same results. load up Code Composer again. Unplug the disk cable. Okay. Let's give it a shot. Mine might be around 1,000. Hopefully it's still around 2,000 like I wanted. Yes, 2,000. Oh my goodness. Now it is programming. Okay, so there is my filter. Definitely not notching it out of existence like the WinDisk one. So yeah, I think it's definitively not as good, unfortunately. But maybe that's just because I'm using an FIR filter designed with a Gaussian distribution. Maybe once we move into the IIR filtering domain techniques, I will be able to form a more aggressive notch filter. Alright, so next will be the flanger effect. See you in the next video.